Welcome to Mojo Talks. I'm Eric, and today a very special edition. It's our Super Bowl edition. Last night was the 52nd Super Bowl, and so we've convened a panel of some of our experts, esteemed colleagues. I have with me Ash and Rebecca. How you guys doing?
Not too bad. Pretty tired.
Tired, eh?
Yeah.
It went a bit late.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking sports. We're going to be talking entertainment because, of course, there's the Justin Timberlake halftime show. There's all the commercials. But before we get to that, I want to talk about the game. Just very briefly, Ash, you've seen your fair share of Super Bowls. How did this compare?
I would say it was probably the best Super Bowl because it was the most offensive game ever.
All time?
I would say all time. There was a few others, like I remember Tennessee Titans, or even like last year's.
Last year's was
good. But the problem with last year's was the game you thought was over by the second quarter, and it was really like in the fourth quarter, which was amazing. Yesterday's game, if you just liked football, was the best one because from the beginning they were matching each other. You thought that like the Eagles were getting ahead, but somehow the Pats were still in it.
Always just one step behind.
And then when they went ahead, you thought that's it, it's over. But in the end, the Eagles went for it on fourth down compared to last year when the Falcons decided to kind of lean back. So I felt like pound for pound, play for play, the fact that there was only one punt throughout the whole game.
And one sack.
Yeah, well, the sack that mattered the most. I thought it was the best game I'd seen anyway.
I kind of felt the whole time the Eagles were playing flawless football. And had it been any other team, and had last year not happened, you would have been like, well, it's over for the Pats. But because of last year, you're always like, yeah.
So I would say, look, you never want to discount or rule out Tom Brady. So going into it, you're like, Tom Brady and the Patriots should win. But I said throughout that the Eagles are going in with absolutely no pressure whatsoever, and they're playing really, really well, and they have a very well-balanced team, right? And you saw that yesterday. And I think like when we were talking earlier in the playoffs with the Jacksonville and Blake Bortles, you saw that there was no dimension to that offense. Nick Foles is a good quarterback. I think he was more a victim of what happens when quarterbacks are not necessarily elite, when then they kind of slip through the cracks and then they kind of switch teams. He was with the Eagles, went with the Rams, KC, and then he got a shot. Not that different, although not exactly the same thing, than when Tom Brady got his shot as a rookie, when Drew Bledsoe got injured, and then Tom Brady led them to the championship. So I felt like, hey, the Eagles have zero pressure. And what you've seen with the Pats is they generally don't blow anybody out in the big game. It's always a close game, and you saw it yesterday. And you got to give credit to Coach Peterson for just going for it. And, when you saw that first touchdown in the first quarter, you knew that the Eagles were going to show up. And
well, they meant business.
Yeah, they meant business. And it was a great game.
My favorite line at one point.
Philadelphia may be burning now, but that notwithstanding, great game.
I don't think we're ones to talk about that.
There you go.
There was a great line, though. I think it was just going into the halftime. The announcer said something along the lines of, who would have thought the difference would be Nick Foles outplaying Tom Brady as a receiver?
Yeah, look, the difference fundamentally, I think, doesn't boil down to that fourth quarter. It really was in the first quarter where there was a missed point after by the Eagles, I think, and a missed field goal by the Pats. But the fact that Tom Brady dropped that would have changed it. And look, ultimately, it was almost flawless football on the offensive side of the football for both teams until that fumble at the end. But look, every play does matter, and sometimes those plays early on come back to haunt you, and that you could argue was the difference in the game.
Very exciting game, but let's talk about the real contentious stuff. JT's Super Bowl halftime show. Rebecca, you're a big fan of Justin Timberlake.
Yes, I am a big fan. I was a Backstreet Boys girl, so I was never a fan of him from the NSYNC side. But after he left, I am a big fan.
And so, how did you feel about his performance last night?
So, knowing that I'm a big fan, I was even surprised that I was kind of lukewarm about it. Mm-hmm. I'm not mad at him about it, like the internet seems to be.
The internet is really up in arms.
It didn't really raise the bar for me in terms of.
But is the internet more mad about the Prince factor
well,
or his performance?
Actually, apparently Justin Timberlake is no longer cool even. Like, regardless of what you think of him talent-wise, I read an article that said he's now the face of dad pop, and I was just like, oy.
I'll tell you what Justin Timberlake had to go up against in like 2017-18. Look, regardless of what you think about the whole male white privilege, the fact that like Janet Jackson has been exiled to Siberia relative to Justin Timberlake, and Justin Timberlake, they roll out the red carpet for him and he comes back and his career was, unaffected. I think going into it, the internet had that beef. Like, so whatever Justin would have done, they would have kind of like, jumped on it. But his performance wasn't all that amazing.
Like,
in a few years, you won't think of one thing from his performance, and the one thing you'll think of is Prince, and you're like, not to paraphrase the great Sinbad, but I think Sinbad's tweet was totally spot on. Who the hell, Justin Timberlake, you cannot be this guy's Prince's roadie, with all due respect to Justin Timberlake. I don't think that made sense. I get the Minnesota connection, but there was 1,000 ways to pay tribute to Prince, and I just don't see those artists being at all on the same level. What do you think, Rebecca? Do you think that Justin Timberlake and Prince are even in the same universe?
Yes, I do. Because I think Justin Timberlake is very talented at everything he does.
Okay.
So, Justin Timberlake peaked after Future Sex Love Sounds. Justified was good.
Justified was a great album.
But after that, it's been downhill. His last releases have been rather...
I agree with that, but I still think he's very talented.
He's very, very talented.
Look, I saw Justin Timberlake live in, I don't remember, this was the early 2000s at SARS Fest. I don't know if you guys remember SARS Fest. This was like, it was...
How old are you? No, I'm kidding. I talked about Tom Brady's rookie year, so...
But SARS Fest was a show, a benefit show, and it had AC/DC, the Rolling Stones, Rush, the Guess Who, a plethora of awesome rock bands, and Justin Timberlake. And he had just put out Justified. It might have been out for a couple of weeks. He got booed. He got booed by a huge crowd, and the guy said, look, I know, I'm Justin Timberlake. This is a rock show. You guys have every right to boo me, but just give me a chance. If you don't like it, keep booing. And he played his stuff, and he kicked ass, and people cheered him on.
No, nobody says he's a douche per se. Nobody's saying he's like a loser or whatever. I just don't think, like I remember when it was like Justin versus Usher. Like, that's an argument you could make. But for Justin to try to ride Prince's coattails, that's going to upset a lot of people. Prince and Michael Jackson were like on the same level, right?
Yes.
So I feel like that was the thing that you knew that was going to piss off a lot of people, exacerbated by the whole Janet Jackson brigade that was kind of...
Well, I think it was exacerbated by the fact that Prince, when he was alive, had said that doing a duet with anybody who's dead with a hologram, although it wasn't a hologram.
It wasn't really a hologram.
It was like
it wasn't
demonic
a duet.
or something
it was a
like
tribute.
that.
I think people are a little bit up in arms for,
it's
got their underwear
Prince
and a whole thing.
Was not a fan of that, and he was very about having control, artistic control over his own stuff.
Does this mean that no one can cover Prince songs?
No, but that's different. No, I think covering is different. Covering
Right.
is different than, hey, the Tupac hologram thing, which I think is a bit weird. Look, you also have to realize it's 2018 where you're gonna always have this instant feedback and critical loop with social media, right? I mean, you're not gonna, like back in the day, somebody would play, it was like, oh, it was good, it was bad, people moved on. But now, with everybody's got a soapbox and everybody's got a platform and everybody's gonna come out and pontificate, I mean, it's like we're making a big deal about Justin Timberlake at the halftime, It's
exactly.
Like, who cares?
And so,
like, if you don't like it, that's the time when you go to the restroom. That's the time when you go and get 20 more chicken wings.
Okay, what about the commercials? I know we don't have a tremendous amount of time. I would say Tide won the Super Bowl. It wasn't the Eagles. Tide was really, that was the big winner.
Yeah, it was a bit. I agree with that. I mean, we had ranked on Friday. We ranked the Super Bowl commercials that we'd already seen for our top 10 Super Bowl commercials of 2018, and Tide didn't make the list because we only had teasers with Terry Bradshaw and David Harbour. But then I had to make an executive decision, and Tide did make the list. I won't tell you where, but you'll have to wait and see. But it did make the list.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Quicken Loans Rocket Mortgage one. That was the story of my life. Yeah, the one where they just
that one too.
Simplify a lot of...
I thought there were some interesting themes, though. There were a lot of VOD TV, binge-worthy TV shows being announced. There were a lot of J.J. Abrams productions.
Well, actually, the biggest thing was corporations trying to be good. All of a sudden, the Hyundai thing. Look, if you're driving a Hyundai and you're going to the Super Bowl, and supposedly they whisk you in a private room and some guy comes out, I mean, whoa there. I mean, I'm going to be, And then the other one was the Martin Luther King speech.
That was awful.
No, I mean, there was a whole discussion going on about do you bash on Ram or do you bash the Martin Luther King estate, which obviously don't want to do.
They came out against it.
But the thing you have to ask is, like, was this even, like, sanctioned by the family, or was this a fair use, like, hey, we're just using a speech? I think that if you are an executive at Dodge and you made that decision, I mean, that's kind of bold. you knew it was going to backlash. So it's kind of like a parallel. If you're Justin Timberlake and you're in Minnesota and you're like, hey, I'm going to put up a big picture of Prince and sing alongside him, some people are not going to like that. And if you're Ram and you're like, hey, we're going to take Martin Luther King and tell people that, you know, I have a dream to drive a pickup truck, that's exactly what he was thinking. Yeah, some people are not going to be cool with that.
So clearly there's a lot to talk about here, a lot to chew on. Let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know, was it a great Super Bowl? Was JT's his performance worthy of all the scorn? And what did you think of all the commercials? We have some lists. We're linking to them in the description. And so you can look at the list of the greatest halftime Super Bowl shows and a bunch of others. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you next time.
Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo and subscribe for new videos every day.